Before we started recording, I really just want to emphasize again, and for everybody tuning in to listen, like Allison, you are one of my teachers from afar. I have listened to many of your audiobooks, read many of your books and the courses and content. I recommend it to my clients all the time. And your work was very foundational for me learning more about understanding my own dynamics of why was I cheated on in my first 3 relationships, and what is it about me that's like creating these patterns. And I was seeking out how, like, trying to understand myself and understand love and understand women deeper and understand how we're different. And your work opened my eyes and is still in a lot of ways the foundation for how I approach things. And so I just want to say thank you. And I'm very, very excited to have you on the show. So I'm a little awestruck right now, starstruck.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And thank you. Thank you for letting me be that. Um, I have to do what I do, right? It's mine to do. I can't not do it. I suffer when I try not to do it. Um, and it makes no difference. What I do makes no difference until someone like you acts upon it. And then that you pass along the message, right? That you pass along a different point of view and a different way of approaching things that creates so much more joy and fulfillment and partnership and love and goodwill. I mean, just thank you. It's why I say yes. It's why I'm here.
Thank you for your yes. And for those
You're
that
welcome.
don't know you, your work has been correct me if I'm wrong, but really in studying men and also understanding women in some regard, and how we get to meet each other more seamlessly, I guess would be a one way to put it. How would you explain what it is that you do?
Oh, wow. Well, I started with trying to figure out, I was given a question, it popped into my head. What if men are responding to women? So I started in 1991, finding out ways that men are responding to women, and also finding out ways that men are not responding to women. That you guys have a saying, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And can I swear on your podcast?
Of course.
Well, most women, when they hear that, they think that's bullshit. They don't get it. And it's so true. They're like the amazing development of men, or Keys of the Kingdom, distinguishes the stages of development. And that has nothing to do with a woman. That is happening to you and determines what you're focused on, determines what you can provide, what you can't provide. No matter how you feel about a woman, it doesn't change what you can and cannot provide. So that is, and there's so many things like that it's determined by gender hormones, it's determined by mindset, it's determined by the values that you as a man hold as yourself. And then on the other side, there are ways that women can uplift and nurture and bring out the best in men, or we can truly bring out the worst in you. We can antagonize your most primitive instincts, and we do it all the time. And then we blame you for who you become when we do that.
So could you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So just to complete that little paragraph, I started with trying to figure out how I was bringing out the worst in men, ended up learning and seeing a jillion times more than I ever expected, including you as men illuminated women for me in a wonderful way. And then so from understanding men to understanding women, to then seeing characteristics that aren't male or female, they're human. So distinguishing human characteristics. And then in the last like 6 or 7 years, and I just started to get to express it in in less than the last year. It's called Freedom from Being Ordinary, which I'm doing online starting tomorrow night. Oh my gosh. It, we are we are literally driven by a planetary paradigm. Like we are compelled to do things that the instinct isn't even human. The instinct,
Mm.
the pine tree outside my door has the exact same instincts. A bacteria, like we are compelled by things so primitive.
Mm.
It can be horrifying to see, but it's also freeing to see. Like, oh my gosh, I'm taking this personally, and so none of it is personal, and then we can start to make conscious choices, right? So it started with men, then women, then humans, and then even what drives us that's it's primordial. It's
That's
part of the goo.
beautiful. So you got a very holistic
Yeah,
view of it all, and your studies, and it's amazing.
so that's what I do. And then so what was your question again? The second
I was
question?
like, let's start with because we're gonna go all the places I feel, but I really want to start with how women draw out the worst in men instead of the best in men. Could you give some examples? Could you speak more to that and then blame him for it being wrong? Because I see that so often, and your work really opened my eyes to how much of a virus this is in our society.
Oh, geez. Yeah. COVID's nothing compared to this epidemic.
Exactly.
So, okay, so I'll express it in a way that, because I'm always trying to find a better way to express things, a faster way. So, one piece would be what I think of as a hierarchy of instincts. And the hierarchy is procreate, then protect, then provide. And so procreate, which sex is the most obvious, but entrepreneurship is procreation, right? Creativity, all forms of creativity are procreation. And we have a tremendous compulsion to do that in all forms. But procreate trumps protect. This is why we have to teach safe sex. every critter on the planet risks its life to procreate. We head straight into danger because it trumps. And then what's really important to understand about this antagonism, right, is then protect trumps provide. So women really, and men too, we want people to be in a giving mode, in a provide, care for, take care of, please God, give me, right? We interact that way universally. And like, give me, take care of me, provide for me, right? That's just a normal place that human beings want to be. And what we don't understand is that, so one of the ways women try to get men to provide is by criticizing you for not providing. Why don't you? Why didn't you? Now we form it that way because that works with women. Women have almost no protection against acting on criticism. We can't not act. Even when we're mad, we can't not be affected by it. And so this is how we try to get men to provide for us, is by criticizing them for not. We don't know that what we do is we now take him from provide, flip him into protect. This will also happen when a woman he cares about does something that he sees as a danger to herself. Right? Like, she keeps spending money like that, she's going to be deep in debt, and that'll really get her in trouble. And so a man will say something to her to try to be protective of her, right? Or she's like, oh, take me shopping. You sure you need to shop some more? And so she just wants him to provide a ride for her to go spend money, and he's trying to protect her. And then she'll attack him for even that expression of caring. So now he's gone from he can't provide for her. He's trying to protect her, and now he's got to protect himself from her. And women do this all the time. They cause men to experience that they have to protect themselves from us. And that gets ugly. How you protect yourselves from us, because this is in the domain of instinct. So people want to elaborate on it, make it more complicated, but really it comes down to fight, flight, or freeze. And everything that people say, including like fawning and all these other things, they're all forms of fight, flight, or freeze. And so a man whose response to feeling attacked and that he has to protect himself, if he has a fight response to that, oh man, it's gonna get so ugly. Because we're terrified by a fight response, and then we have our own, right? And then the things you get accused of because of that is more of the misperception, misunderstanding, lack of being willing to be responsible for what we triggered. And I get strung up regularly for this, for intimating that women would have anything to do with men's poor behavior, and especially being out of control. But if a man withdraws, if he ghosted me, I said this one thing and he ghosted me, what an asshole, right? Or if he freezes, he just shuts down. Right? So if he flees, he's wrong. If he shuts down, that was my husband's first move. I'm a fighter. So I fight, freeze, flight. That's my sequence. It's good to know our own sequence. And his was freeze, flight, fight. So he would never fight back. I wanted him to fight back. He would just shut down, and then he would disappear. And when he would come back to fight, which was like one out of a jillion times in almost 30 years together, his shoulders would be up around his ears. He was boiling over with anger at the injustice that he'd been accused of. Sorry about that. So that protect, provide thing, right? So that's one of the horrible dynamics that we bring out the worst in men. And then can I give you one more that's even worse?
Yeah.
It's his procreate business. So women do not understand men's sex drive. They don't understand it. They don't understand the primitive expression of procreate. There's also a human spirit expression of procreate. It's beautiful. We call that making love, right? There's a lot of conscious choice. There's a lot of providing in it. But in the pure human instinct, survival of the species, relationship to procreate, to sex, it's stimulated visually. And if I were just to give an analogy, a lot of women these days, and I don't begrudge them the right to wear as many or few clothes as they want. I just wish they would understand how they're antagonizing men's most primitive instincts and then making men wrong for acting primitively. Because it's like a refrigerator walking around with its door open, being pissed that somebody grabbed something out of the refrigerator. So first of all, close the door and don't lead with sexuality. And some women lead so loudly with their sexuality that the part of the man who could care about her more than he cares about himself, that would die to protect her, that part of himself is it's drowned. It's drowned out. It's not even invited to the interaction. And I found this out and ended up the only nonfiction book I've ever produced, called Making Sense of Men, A Woman's Guide to Love, Care, and Attention from All Men. Found out that what a man calls just physical. So what's going on with you and that woman? It's just physical. I always thought, and almost all women think, he means he likes her body. He likes her body. He doesn't care about her mind. He doesn't care about her emotions. He doesn't care about her spirit and the deep meaning to who she really is. He's just after her body. No. One of the biggest shockers was to find out when a man says it's just physical, he's talking about himself. That he is responding to her physically. He has a physical response to her. Not an intellectual intrigue, not a spiritual calling forth, not an emotional resonance. That all those parts of himself were not invited to the party, were not called to the party, and that the physical response is so intense, in fact, it drowns out the rest. And when a man is in that state, it's like aggravating hunger, and I call it take mode. It just calls forth take, which human beings do. Human beings take what they need. Human beings take what they want. We're takers. And not just men. Women take all the time. But men are the ones who are reviled for it. And women don't know how much we cause that response.
And that's what I was going to ask. Like, so you're saying that the woman is actually the one kind of causing or at cause for that response of how he's showing up, or what it is that's being presented forth in the connection, and more often than not. Is that accurate?
Way more often than not. And it causes a really bad dynamic, because if she's appealing to him physically and he has a take response, normally that will give most women the heebie-jeebies. That'll scare her, which brings out the worst in a woman. But if she has a chemical attraction to him, which chemistry's it's worse than crack, right? It's a combination of testosterone and epinephrine. It is a cocktail that turns women into hunters. So if she has a chemical response to him, which happens from a perception of strength, then she's going to ignore her heebie-jeebies. She's going to head towards him instead of the other way. They'll have a physical encounter, and then she'll try to make a relationship out of it. And he's a jerk when he's can't even hear that, right? Let alone has any inclination to do relationship stuff, which is all about caring, right? And she hasn't exhibited anything that's going to cause him to care. We have a series called Dating with Distinctions, and it starts with, are you dating in the dark? And it talks about the effects of too much chemistry, because chemistry is lovely. It makes everything hot. But too much chemistry makes people stupid and mean. And one of the things that I encourage both men and women to do, because you're on the other side of just a chemical attraction. And that chemical attraction could be economic attraction. What they perceive as your strength is how many resources you have. And so she's going to hunt you down. It brings out the worst in women. And so I recommend for both men and women, preferably before you ever meet in person, like if you're on a dating app or something, or someone set you up, talk on the phone or message in a text, like in a dating app. Well, I'm glad you liked me too. So the first thing I would need is to have a conversation with you. And in that conversation, I'd be honored if you'd tell me more about this. I'd be delighted if you would expand on this thing you said in your profile. So you let them know this is not going to be an interrogation. This is curiosity. And you find out several things by writing that message back. One, you find out, do they read? Do they follow instructions? So what I would need next is a conversation. Do they read? Do they follow instructions? And do they care about what you need? Like if you say, what I would need next is to talk to you, and they don't respond at all, the end. They don't care about what you need. If they were like, God, you're demanding, the end. If someone treats you speaking up about what you need as demanding, that already tells you they don't care what you need. And that's what happens when it's just sexual attraction. Physical attraction is just take. It's just hunger, eat. It's primitive. We're primitive. We have a whole primitive side. So for both men and women, find out, is there any little bit of caring that has been evoked from what they know about me so far? And because if it isn't there, there's nothing to build upon. Really, nothing to build upon. And the sexual attraction can be so loud, it can actually prevent any of that from showing up. And then how we act when we're sexually attracted is such a turn off in terms of caring. It's like, oh yeah, we're great in bed, but could she? I mean, one of the first things I talked about when I was, because men started talking to me about sex right away. As soon as I started listening, they started talking, and they like made a joke about, yeah, my only thing I wish about sex is when we're done, could you turn into a pizza? And women think that's horrid, but they don't know that physical attraction is object to object. It's all objectification. There's no caring. And okay, what you were a moment ago was what I needed to take, and now could you please be a pizza? I think it's hilarious. Women think it's horrid, but they're not getting it. And they don't know how much the way they lead with their sexual energy, their sensuality, and showing a whole lot of skin and a whole lot of shape, that they're just teasing a tiger. And they don't want to own that or be responsible for it. And they often don't even know they're doing it. They literally are innocent about it. They don't know. And I discovered this. My son was about 14. Took him to the airport to go back to his dad. There were these girls, these young women with, cleavage and midriffs and short shorts. And I watched him watching them, and the look on his face, he was furious. My son, whose highest value is honor. He's the most honorable person I know, and he's passionate. As an adult, and this started when he was in his 20s, he's passionate about men treating women honorably. And he had this look of fury on his face. And I just said to him very gently, they don't know what they're doing to you. And he said, oh, yes, they do. It was so...
Wow.
Yeah.
Number one, that's beautiful. And just to see the lineage you've even created, the legacy that you've created with raising a man that has that value is beautiful and just warms my heart to think about. So then how do women evoke the best in men? How do they kind of wake up from that darkness and show up different? Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. By the way, don't take any credit for raising him that way. The first 3 years of his life, I was trying to drive anything man-like out of him. Because it wasn't until he was almost 3 years old that I gave up emasculating men. I started studying men when he was 20. And started seeing the beauty in men, the strength in men, the honor in men, all the gifts that men have. And and started saying men are God's gift to women. And if a woman was just even willing to consider that, like, what if men are made for us? What if men are a perfect complement to our strengths and weaknesses? And we don't have to be strong in the way that they're strong. And they need us to be strong in the way that we're strong. And we have opposing instincts, but once you know they're opposing and we're doomed to bringing out the worst in each other, then there's this, I mean, literally, like, you just make these slight adjustments and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the beauty. When I first started to see it, it blew my mind. So just to get curious, like, what if what our culture, and this is pretty much first world culture across, I mean, when we published the Queen's Code in 2012, it was being read in 70 countries within 3 weeks. And it was only in English. And everyone was resonating with it. So yeah. So this is a first world thing. For sure, this attitude, what do I need men for? Just give me a sperm bank and a vibrator. What do I need these jerks for? And women who are fiercely independent, yet they want to partner, one of the assignments I'll give them is, okay, write it down. What do I need men for? Really? And then they start to get into their heart about it. I need them to see me. I need them to comfort me. I need them to hold me. I need them to make me feel beautiful. I need them to awaken my body because I abandon it regularly. I mean, there's so many gifts that you have, and we can't see them as long as we're punishing you for not acting like a woman, which is what women do all the time. We punish men for not acting like women. We think you are supposed to act like a woman, and you're purposely not. You're misbehaving. And so that's why the Queen's Code, and I'm so glad that you've read it. I encourage everyone who's read it to listen to it because it comes alive in a totally different way. But it's about the true motivations of men, and as long as we're oblivious to what you're motivated by, especially, as you know, the first word in the hero language is provide. Men are motivated by providing. And we think when you offer to provide, that that's an insult to our ability to provide for ourselves. And instead of that, you're offering because how highly you think of us, not how little you think of us, how much you think of us, that you want to make our lives easier. You want us, like one man said, I want to provide for my wife everything that I can provide so that she can be everything I can never be. Yeah. Like, you guys, you all see how tired we get. You see how much we exhaust ourselves by doing. And why are you doing so little? Do more, because there's so much to be done. Get off the couch, right? And you see us exhaust ourselves on things that to you aren't worth doing. Honey, take a nap. Honey, rest. Sit by me. Let me hold your hand. Let's do something fun. You're so stupid. Can't you see everything that needs to be done? And not knowing that all the things that we perceive needing to get done has to do with what estrogen does to our brain. Which is the opposite of what testosterone does. And you guys have a constant worth it calculation. I used to call it a worth it equation, and it's wrong. If it turns out equal, you can't do it. Instinctually, you cannot do something that you give one, you get one, because that's how you die. That's how you don't have anything left for a rainy day. You have a worth it calculation. So this thing, how much time, money, and energy and resources will it take to do it? What will I have to take that from? So what will I have to not do in order to do? And then what's going to be the outcome of doing it? What's going to be the benefit? What's the return on investment? What's it going to bring back? How much better off will everybody be for that? And if it isn't strongly in the positive, your instincts have you not move. You wonder, honey, why aren't you out there getting a job? I don't know what to do. Well, just do anything. He thinks that's idiotic. Why would I do something I don't think will work? That's stupid. And if you look at it from an instinctual standpoint, it is stupid. If you don't think you can succeed, you're better off doing nothing, conserving that energy. And so women don't know how much we play into something being worth doing. We just mad at you for not doing what you're supposed to do. But you don't see a supposed to do. You see a not worth doing. And we don't know that we make something worth doing by how it contributes to us. That if you take care of the kids tonight, I really will go to bed early and I'll be someone tomorrow that will be happy. I'll be a happy wife. Sure, I'll take the kids every night, but only if you actually go to sleep, not if you spend the next 2 hours cleaning the house beyond what's purely needed for functionality. We can all find our clothes. We've done enough cleaning. There are dishes to eat on. You've done enough cleaning. Rest, relax, have fun, do something that nurtures you so you can be the person who gives me life, the person who can appreciate me, the person who can see me.
And
I'm
that's
stopping
so
myself.
beautiful. Well, I absolutely love all that you shared, and I'm still a little curious of what are some of the other ways that women can show up from and evoke the best in men that they're in relation with.
Thank you for. How do you evoke the best in men? Okay. First would be clarity. So before you go fishing, which women are often fishing for what they need, sit down with yourself. We teach this in a little miniature program on our website called Thrive Your Life. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes, but it's pure gold. Make sure, first of all, that you're clear enough and use your imagination to get clear enough that you could state what you need, not as a not need, that you can say what it is instead of just what it isn't. That you can describe what it would look like if you were given that. You can state the difference it would make in your life. In other words, what it would provide for you if he did that. And get yourself, so have that clarity, and then get yourself in a way of being that, well, one way to think about it is, what if everyone is always giving you their best interpretation of what they heard you? So instead of coming at you like, what's wrong with you that you're not already doing this, come at it like, okay, I've gotten clear about something that is really important to me, that if you would provide it for me, it would make a huge difference. When would be a good time to tell you about it? Mostly we're going to want it to you right now. But if a woman asks a man that, he'll think about, when could I focus on really hearing her, right? And he'll pick a time when he thinks he can, and then he'll do his best to do that. That all he's there is to get this information. You guys are awesome. So if she did that, right? If she developed the clarity, then asked for a time to talk. And then one of the things that's often important, because we're so critical and often mean to men, would be, you're not in trouble. you're not in trouble for not already doing this. That's on me. I haven't been clear. And as you can see, it happened to Karen in the Queen's Code, right? She realizes all her criticizing her husband for not taking out the trash never conveyed what a difference it would make in her life. And therefore, he was never satisfied the worth it calculation. So that would be one part, is clarity. The lack of clarity leaves people guessing, and guessing does not give you a big enough chance at succeeding to be worth attempting. That's what you guys want to know ahead of time. This is worth attempting. There's going to be a big payoff, and there's a good chance I'm going to get it. And then the other side of it is making sure there's a big payoff. And this is another place where we have to interrupt our own instincts. And that is, we are so driven by the voice in our head. We call it the perfect person or the ideal woman, that things have to be perfect. We're so driven for that. We see what's not instead of what is. So, like the first man who expressed this to me, he said, "Why do I always get 100 points or 0? Why don't I ever get 80? And we need to appreciate effort. Even if it gets it 10% right, appreciate that he took a step down the path. Thank you for what you did so far." Do you have any questions about what comes next to fulfill what you said you do for me? Instead of, "That's not the half of it, you idiot."
Yeah.
Kevin, did you happen to watch, it's on YouTube, Why Criticism Never Works? Have you
I don't
happened to
think
watch
so.
that? It's something I
Uh,
recommend. Okay, well, I
okay.
just sort of encourage you and your people to watch it. Why Criticism Never Works and Why We Do It Anyway. And it distinguishes between how men respond to criticism and how women respond to criticism. And we criticize men because it works on women. So the other side of it is appreciation. There's clarity on one end, and then there's acknowledgement and appreciation on the other end. And acknowledging, which has the word no in it, so call attention to, "Wow, look what you did. You did that. Thank you. I asked you to do that, and you did that. And thank you. And thank you for doing it for me. Even when you had all these other things to do, it makes such a difference when you did it. Thank you. It makes me feel really special, like I'm a priority." And he's like, "Well, duh, of course you're a priority." So try not to be hurt by that part. We're always trying to be your first priority, which I warn women, you do not want to be a man's first priority. Men
Talk more
have
about
too
that.
big a
Why
capacity.
not?
Well, I found out the hard way, because when my husband retired, I became his first priority. Before then, it was providing for our whole family. And as men, your capacities, and women too, we have enormous capacities as human beings. And your need to be productive, your need to contribute, to make a difference, to do something that matters is enormous. And if we're your first priority, we literally can't give you enough to do that's worth doing. And like when COVID hit, right? When we had the first shutdown in March of 2020, I was like, oh my God, this is hideous. We have men and women with opposing instincts are going to be locked in a cave together, and she won't be let out to gather, and he won't be let out to hunt. And oh, this is going to be terrible. 9 months from now, they're going to have a lot of divorces or a lot of babies. And we gave away 6,000 Understanding Women courses just to try to, because that compares the instincts to, because I'm translating women into men's world. And so I started doing radio shows and telling women, you've got to find something for him to kill. he needs to produce, he needs to kill, he needs to conquer. Do you have any ivy growing on your house? Do you have any weeds in the yard? Do you
I'm laughing,
do
but
you
it's so true.
have anything? It's so true. It's so true. Don't have him dust the piano. Do not have a hero and a hunter and a warrior dust the piano unless dusting the piano makes you cry with joy and take like all your clothes off in appreciation. Like unless it does that for you, do not ask a man to dust the piano. And oh my gosh. And then that even brings in like men and women don't have the same vision. Literally, our gender hormones create our brain in such a way that the faster something's moving, the bigger the difference between a man and a woman's ability to see it. And this is what makes you able to throw the football to where the guy's going to be, or to the plate that the baseball player is going to try to steal, or I mean, and to throw a deer, throw a spear at where the deer's going. You guys can do that, and it's amazing. But the opposite is true. The less something is moving, the more a woman sees it. The sock on the floor, the dust on the piano, the things, the crooked ball, the things that aren't moving are screaming at us. And that's
Wow.
why they seem so important to do. Things that are out of place. Like if you think of estrogen, right? It creates a gatherer's brain. A gatherer goes to her meadow and something's out of place. How did the tree fall down? What happened to the tree? Oh my gosh, is there a bear here? Is somebody gonna kill us? Who took that? Do we have an enemy? Like we pay so much attention to the still things. I've never said it this way before, Kevin, but we do.
Wow.
We
It
see what
makes a lot
isn't
of
moving,
sense. Yeah.
and we want it to get moving. Yes, yes. And so we keep trying to get you to move things that aren't moving, to put things away, to dust pianos. When you guys want to solve big problems, right? Which I love, which is how come I ended up doing what I'm doing. I was born an activist. I've been passionate about the end of hunger since I first heard about it when I was a little girl. And I finally realized that as long as we're disempowering the compulsive problem solvers of the world, also known as men, um, one man said a problem to a man is like a squirrel to a dog. As long as we're emasculating you, as long as we're disempowering you, depriving you of your virility, starving you for food and attention and sex and appreciation, how are you going to solve the big problems? I mean, one of the ways I've said it for years is most men are trying to get out of a conversation with their testicles. That's the problem we make you solve all the time. No wonder we're that
And it's,
nice.
yeah. And it's definitely been apparent just on how you've explained that dynamic in this conversation. So I just want to say thank you for doing a good job of that. You've got so
Very
much
well.
amazing content out there. So everybody, like, be sure to look up Alison's work. Literally just go on Audible and type in her name and just pick one. It's going to change your life. And before we started recording, I don't know if we can talk about it, but you said that you're in the development of something new coming through. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I always, let's see, I was a little over a year into studying men when I knew I had to write a book because I'd already been so surprised and my life so transformed by what I learned about men that I was wrong about, and that almost all women are wrong about. And so I knew I had to write that book. And 15 years later, 15 years later, I knew enough to write that book, and it's called Keys to the Kingdom. And before then, I wrote actually, Keys to the Kingdom was before I knew how to write the Queen's Code. The Queen's Code was always the book. I didn't know how to write it, but I knew how to write Keys to the Kingdom. So that we published in 2003. And then when the Queen's Code, I always knew there'd be a sequel to the Queen's Code. There just was. And it wasn't the end of the story. And it's been, I wrote the Queen's Code in 2009. And then in 2018, I told you this, it feels like these characters just live in another dimension. And in 2018, I was like, so what's going on over there? I just asked, so what you guys up to? And they showed me what had happened. Right after the Queen's Code ended, they showed me what happened. And I was like, oh my God, I can't write about that yet. I don't know enough to be able to write about that. So then about 2 years ago, I could feel myself like, oh, it's coming. I'm pregnant with the sequel. And then a year ago, I gave my boyfriend the heads up. I'm like, I'm definitely entering the second trimester of the sequel. It's going to want to come out. And he's like, so how does this work? Right? Because he hadn't seen, Greg had seen me write all the other books, right? And so how does this work? Do you go away somewhere for a year? and then and then about, I think it was about 3 months ago. My life is so weird, Kevin. I just had to surrender to how magical it is. Because about 3 months ago, I was standing in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I heard these words in my head, and I just stopped. I was like, is that the title? Mm-hmm. Really? The title of the sequel? Yeah. Does that mean does that mean, and all these things were being shown to me, like all these dynamics in the Queen's Code are changing, and it means this and it means that, and is there going to be a vow like in the Queen's Code? What's it gonna? It's gonna be that. Oh my gosh. I literally had tears streaming down my face as there was just this flood of movie trailers, right? Just like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And so it's like, okay, I had to tell my staff, all right, we have to clear the decks. I gotta let myself sink down in the bathtub and channel the sequel. And right after that, Ellen Fisher interviewed me, and the interview went up on YouTube about a month ago. And I think probably by next week it'll have 300,000 views. And it was pretty crazy. But her last question, she's like, okay, Alison, this is my last question. Like, yes, just so when is there going to be the King's Code? And I was like, how did you know the name? I just found out the name. And then it's like, but that was going to be what it was going to be. It's the King's Code. And so I've been in awe. It's the King's Code. And one of the things that's important about it, I don't know if have you watched The Amazing Development of Men? Have you listened to
I've
it?
listened to
Actually,
it.
it's on Audible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The Amazing Development of Men, the stages of development. Keys of the Kingdom is the fiction story about the stages of development. So kings, men and women get pretty confused about what a king is. Because we have an ancient history of kings, and it's the history of might is right. And I become a king by dominating everybody else. That's what a king is, someone who dominates everybody else and then has the right to take from the peasants. No, not really. No. That's just the survival side of it, right? That's just the human instinct side of it. That's not the human spirit side of it. The human spirit side of it is a man who's true to his highest values and doesn't betray himself and restores himself when he restores his honor, and is all about providing for the people that he cares for and takes as little as he can from them, not as much as he can from them. And people who fashion themselves as kings, and Tony Robbins loves this material and he loves to teach this material. And then a lot of his people come out and they want to be kings and leave a legacy, and they want a partner, and a partner to them is a woman who will support him in everything he does while requiring nothing from him. It's actually not about promoting. Like, oh, Tony. He also teaches from the old Understanding Women DVD and CD that's on Audible, which is just women as gatherers, and most women are hunting these days. So it's hard. I mean, it's better than nothing, that information, but please don't just go to Audible. I haven't given them anything to publish since 2005, I think, is the oldest thing. So 20 years of my work is only at AlisonArmstrong.com, or you're better off just watching free stuff on YouTube. You can spend a month on YouTube. You'll get more up-to-date information. And the stuff on Audible, is it good? Yes. Can in sync with opposite sex save your life? Yes. The Amazing Development will have you honor yourself as a man and have women stop making so many mistakes. Yes. But the best, most up-to-date, easiest to digest is at AlisonArmstrong.com. And we have 100 hours in our formal curriculum and another 100 hours in just one-off programs that have no prerequisite or process to them. And then there's a bunch of free stuff.
Well, I'm going to be diving in, that's for sure. Everybody tuning in, y'all definitely head there, soak up all that information. I'm excited for the King's Code, most definitely. And I'll be on the edge of my seat waiting for that release. And I just want to say thank you for coming on the show, sharing your heart, sharing your wisdom, sharing who you are. And this gift that is flowing through you is just palpable and felt. And even just the whole time hearing you talk about it, I'm like, I'm hearing you, and I'm also hearing what you're not saying. And like so much was happening in my experience just listening to you. And so it's just truly an honor. And I want to say thank you.
You're very welcome. It's hard not to just well, I can't not overflow. Yeah, y'all changed my life. I had no clue that the beauty, the majesty of women until I started learning about women from men. Who you are, that we are, is so much better than who we think we are. Like, really, truly, learning about men, listening to men, did more for my self-esteem than any feminist bullshit that my mother tried to pour into me. You got to have a man, but never need one. That was the message growing up. You got to have one, but they're good for nothing and never need one. But make sure you have one, or as a woman, you're not.
That's confusing.
It was really confusing. All right. Well, I'm going to go because I could do this for days. And thank you so